Hey, Daddy-O.
Hello there, Blue.
It's good to
That's
see
my
you.
favorite daughter.
Ugh, I'm not gonna even entertain that joke because you know I'm your only daughter.
Yeah,
I'm the best only daughter you've ever had, right?
right.
Yeah. I'm doing good. Just finished up work today. I'm excited about this book talk, the very first one we've ever done,
Amen. That's all new, all Greek to me.
right? So, let me ask you this question real quick. So today we're talking about your newest book, and when I say newest book, it's kind of interesting because I was doing a little research and I found out that less than 0.2% of the entire population ever publishes one book, much less two books. And I thought that
Hmm.
was pretty cool. And the fact that you have published yours, your first one like 10 years ago, and then this one now is pretty phenomenal. I haven't even written a first draft of my first book. So congratulations on not one, but two.
Well, thank you. I had a lot of help between you and Kristen, my granddaughter. If it
Yeah.
wasn't for y'all and your mama, it never would have happened.
Well, Kristen's on here. She's not going to have her camera on today. She's got her kiddos with her watching also. But yeah, it was fun. She and I, my niece Kristen, got to tag team and help you with your first book with the editing and the formatting. And then we've gotten to help you with this book too. And I think I'm a little bit more excited about this book than I was even the first one for a lot of reasons. But before we get into this new book that everybody wants to know about and everybody wants to know how they can buy it. Tell me about the first book in case someone doesn't know about the Ghosts of Black Creek. Just a little quick overview and how people might be able to get a copy of it.
Well, I was sitting at my computer back in 2001. I wrote a paragraph about an experience I had when I was almost 16 years old, hog hunting in the cold, rainy weather in January with my brother Dub. And you came up and mentioned when you read it, you said, Dad, why don't you write a book? So I just began writing memories down and stories I'd heard from the old timers, and finally got it done. Then two hurricanes slowed it down, but we got it done. I think we got it published in 2016.
Yeah, you did in 2016, but you mentioned the hurricanes, and I actually had done a presentation for work a few years back, and your story was part of my presentation, and I did a whole timeline of the way that the timeline of you writing that first book and all of the different obstacles that came your way that you overcome to get you to the point where you actually published it. And you mentioned the hurricanes, but you also had a triple bypass surgery in 2014. And in that same year, you had a kidney transplant, and mama was your perfect match donor in 2014. And then
Yeah, that's right.
2015 was the trip to California where you climbed Morro Rock. And that same year was when we were finalizing getting that book published and ready to go in 2016. So quite the journey. And I think you kind of understated it there. So I wanted to just like say, wow, all the things.
Well, 5 years ago in March to June the 3rd, in 21, I was in the hospital with COVID.
Hmm.
And that's a miracle in itself. Took me forever to get strength built up in my legs to be able to walk. And
Yeah.
anyway, God's been good to me.
He has been good. He's not finished with you yet. And I think this book is another sign of that, getting it out there and letting people know not just about the Big Thicket, because I mean that's a big part of it, but really your history, the lineage, the genealogy, and the legacy that you're passing down to your children and your grandchildren and their kids, right? So
Right.
that's amazing. The whole journey to get to where you are, I mean, I think is phenomenal. So let's go ahead and do this. I've got a picture, a slide up on the screen. I'm going to leave it there for a second and then I'm going to take it off in a minute because I want your face to be prominent on the screen and not so much the slide when the recording plays back. But tell me about the book cover. This is the book cover of the newest book. Uh, the Last Big Thicket Bear Hunter, The Life and Legacy of Daniel Warren Brown. Tell us a little bit about that book cover.
He probably was the last big thicket bear hunter. And it's about his life and legacy. And there's a picture there, you see it, of the man standing there with a gun facing a bear and four hound dogs baying at the bear. And underneath my name, you'll see forwarded by Kenneth Pelt. Kenneth Pelt's been a prominent member of Hardin County for years and years, and a lifelong friend of mine. We went to high school together some before he graduated, before I did. But yeah, and the last big thicket bear hunter, I had to struggle to decide what the name of the book, and I came up with that. I thought it was very fitting, considering that he's the only bear hunter I know of that actually chronicled his exploits. He couldn't read or write, so he had my Uncle Hardy. It's probably my Uncle Hardy's idea, because he used to sit around and tell these bear hunting stories to everybody that came along. So Uncle Hardy wrote it all down in a little booklet form. And he was very articulate, not to be able to read or write. And he could tell those stories. But I thank my Uncle Hardy for doing that, because if he hadn't did it, we wouldn't have this history today. The story of this bear hunt, since he gets into some bad spots in the Big Thicket hunting these bears. Some of you might have read some of these stories out of the newspapers that they put in the newspaper 50 years ago. But this is in book form where it's readily available to read easily. And it's got stories about these hunts and places where he lived and different things like that. But that's pretty much the reason I came up with that name. Because a lot of times he would be hunting by himself, and other times he would be with other guys and even his sons. But I'm happy to be able to do it, and I hope y'all will enjoy it.
Oh, they're going to enjoy it. I've read it through many, many times for different reasons. I get the privilege of, I say privilege, and also the challenge of editing the book. And one of the things to me that was particularly challenging about this book this time was the fact that we've got three personas telling perspectives in the book. We've got my great grandpa, your grandpa, Daniel Warren, who the book title is named for, right? The bear hunter. And then we've got your dad, Otha Brown, his son. And then we've got you, the third generation of these three, telling your perspective. And all three of you guys built your homes, built your lives in the same general area. I mean, like you would say, probably a stone's throw from each other, even where you live today. So tell us a little bit about the fact that you guys, the three generations right there, are kind of in that same plot of Earth.
Yeah, Grandpa, when he came here, he came to find his dad that was living in the Big Thicket, and he settled here with them and raised hogs and sheep, and the bear got so bad killing them he had to start hunting the bears to keep them from killing all his animals. But he lived a great adventurous life, and he would peddle meat in a wagon. But this is before electricity or any trains or automobiles came out in this area. He would peddle meat in the wagon to different stores like in Sour Lake or Koontz or somewhere. And he made a good living doing that. But his son, Uncle Gavin, my namesake, was the oldest, and he was hunting bears with him when he was 14 years old. But yeah, we all lived in the same area, and my daddy always said that if he ever left Hardin County, he'd leave Texas. But he didn't like any place but Hardin County. And Brother Dub had been all over the world practically. He's in the army and different places, and he said he wouldn't give 1 acre of Hardin County for the whole state of California. Well, that's
I
saying
re
something.
And yeah, and your sister Beth is actually listening in on this book talk today. So she lives in California. I'm sure she's like thinking, yeah, 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 because she grew up here too, and she's got a cool note in the book as well about what it was like for her as a young girl and a teenager growing up in the Big Thicket, and her experience was quite different than you and your brothers. So I definitely hope that people will read it and not only get the stories that you shared, your grandpa shared, your dad shared, but also your sister and your brother, Uncle Russell, also shared a story as well in there. So um, I'm excited for people to read it. Now, you mentioned about the name, the title of the book, The Last Big Thicket Bear Hunter. And I remember reading in one or two places that my great grandpa, your grandpa, Daniel Warren Brown, actually killed like over 500 bears. That is like the record. And I think that is probably why he's getting this name, this attribution as the last big thicket bear hunter. But he did hunt with a lot of people that were renowned hunters. There were some people in the area who thought they were big hunters and they would come and hunt with them. And then there's some funny stories about that. That's all I'm going to say. You need to read the book and read the funny stories associated with my great grandpa, Warren Brown, and these hunters that he hunted with. I think that people will find them entertaining. One story in particular I want to ask you about, Daddy, is the reason I'm wearing this black denim jacket today in 100-degree heat in Texas is because there's a story about great grandpa Daniel or Warren Brown, who was wearing a denim black jacket. Can you just really quickly summarize that story and what went down in that particular bear hunt?
Yes, he was had a bear bait up with the dogs, and all of a sudden the bear went one way, and the dogs went toward him, and they mistook him for the bear because he had that black denim black jacket on, and he like they never got him off of him. But they finally smelled and figured out that he wasn't the bear and retreated. But that's an interesting story. Yeah, there's all kinds of stories in there that he did that you just wonder how he could do it,
So
especially have a
his own dogs nearly took him out because they thought he was a bear.
yeah,
That's crazy.
exactly.
How many dogs did he have? He had a lot.
He had at least 12
Yeah,
that we know of that are mentioned in the book.
yeah, yeah.
So
That's
he had to have a lot of dogs because once in a while they'd get stove up and skin up hunting the bear, and one get killed every once in a while, by the bears.
hmm one
Anyway,
of
so it was quite a way of life back then. No electricity, no running water. Uh, they had to do everything from scratch, as far as mama, grandma cooking in the kitchen
hmm
on a wood burning stove and things of that nature. But it was tough. And we wonder today we can't hardly live 30 minutes without air conditioning. They lived their lives without it.
And I can't live without my Amazon and Walmart delivery for very
Yeah.
long, or I'm just like, oh no, what do I got? I've got to go to a store. What is that like? And I have a card. I can drive to the store, and that wasn't the case for you guys, your grandpa in particular. Then technology and the Industrial Revolution changed things for your dad as he was growing up. I mean, he had, cars. That was new. That wasn't the case when great grandpa Warren was hunting in the woods. I mean, they had to use wagons and horses and things like that. And I remember one story that you write, like about your time growing up in the Big Thicket, and I always loved the title of it. It was a title you had from the very beginning when we first started editing this book, and I loved it. It's called We Rode Horses. And even
Yeah.
though you had cars and vehicles, vehicles they were around when you were a teenager and when you were a young boy, I love the fact that you still have a chapter dedicated to your youth that's titled We Rode Horses. Do you want to say anything about that time of your youth and your childhood in the Big Thicket?
In my first book, I mentioned about peddling the grit newspapers, a weekly newspaper back in those days. And I would ride my little horse, Bess, little Pinto, all the way down 2 miles north to Ted Dahl's place, and then 2 miles south to Jesse Lowe's place and selling those grit newspapers in between the few houses that were there. I didn't do it but one summer because the weather was getting inclement and riding a horse bareback. It was tough, but and then I had other stories where we was riding the horses in the woods and my horse stumbled and fell and threw me off. Another one, she stepped into a pit where they was digging oil wells and had that mud skimmed over on the top. She stepped into it thinking it was hard ground. Just she and I both just plunged into the water, that mud all over us. But it was a very interesting life at that time.
And the way that you describe, you really gave a very high level summary of those two stories. But when you get in there and you actually read it and you see the detail and the description that goes into it, it's like it puts you there in time where you can imagine what it was like living without the modern conveniences of the day. And I don't know which I prefer. Honestly, I think there's a lot in 2026 that I'm like, man, I wish we just didn't have that because it's just too much access. And then there's so much back then that I'm like, I could not have lived back then. There's no way I could have done what my great grandmother Annie did with those hogs. I'm thinking about every piece of the hog, every piece of the bears, every piece of every animal that they killed was for a purpose. It wasn't wasted, whether it was for food or whether it was to barter or to sell parts or the hides or whatever to take care of the family, right? And not just the family, but the community too, because there was a shared community spirit in the
Right.
Big Thicket. I think that still exists.
It does. It's not as existent now as it was then because everybody has many conveniences and they really don't need each other in that respect. The only time they get to really see each other is when they go to church, meet at the church.
Hmm.
And the homecomings we had here at the church for 80 years, I think it is now. But
Hmm. If there's one thing about that time, whether it's the time that you lived as a boy, teenager, or maybe it's just reading the stories that your dad passed down or your grandpa passed down. If there's one thing that you've read and learned, what do you wish would come back that we don't have enough of?
the simplicity of visiting, just driving up to somebody's house and visiting without having to call on the phone or get permission to come. It was just a way of life. People just go around visiting people. And most of the time they had to walk and they didn't live too far apart. But yeah, I miss those times when people just show up. But in 1991, I woke up one morning and I wrote a song. And I didn't know it was a song. I just wrote, started writing. Within 20 minutes, I had a song about my grandpa coming to Texas.
Oh,
If
you
you have,
did. If only there was some way we could hear that song right now. You wouldn't want to sing it for us, would you?
not me, but do you have it recorded?
Perhaps we do. Okay, let's take just a second and listen to a little bit of that song that you're talking about your Grandpa Warren.
When my grandpa came to Texas, he was young and in his prime. He settled in Hardin County on the Big Thicket side. Well, it must have been like paradise, perfect place to be. Live and love on the land that was wild and free. And all he ever needed to survive was a sure shooting rifle and a string of fishing line. 'Cause everything he needed to raise a family came from the land that was wild and free. He didn't have an oil well sitting in his backyard. He didn't on a motorboat or drive a fancy car. No TV or radio to tell him where to be.
I'm going to stop it right there. And I'm going to say this, if you want to hear the rest of that song, we're actually going to upload every single song that you have written and recorded about the Big Thicket to your YouTube channel. And everybody's going to be able to like listen to those because this isn't the only one, right, Daddy? You
Right.
have more. Yeah. And I think in your first book, this is the cover of the first one, The Ghost of Black Creek. You actually have the lyrics to those songs inside of the book. Like if you flip through it, almost close to between every chapter. So there are a lot of them, a lot of songs about the Black Thicket or the Big Thicket and the Ghost of Black Creek. And then all the songs are going to be on your YouTube channel too for people to listen to. I love that. You said 1991 is when you wrote the song that we just played. And I'm thinking about how old I was in 1991 and how close I am to just, I don't know, that was a long time ago. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
And I just remember when you wrote that song and how special all of them have been to our family. And this book is about legacy too. It's about the life of your grandpa, but it's also about the legacy of the family, the Browns and the extended Brown family. And I want to talk for a second about the genealogy because I feel like in the same way that the Big Thicket has changed since your grandpa actually hunted in the Big Thicket, I mean, it's a different Big Thicket than it was back then. And you can talk about that a little bit too. But I also want to talk about your genealogy, like the people in our family, like you go back in our history. I mean, I was reading through it and I was trying to keep up with all the branches and how people were related, and it's a lot. You almost need your own little map to follow it. And then there's like this series of double first cousins, and I'm like, I don't even know what that means. What is a double first cousin? So if you could just comment on first the double first cousin thing and clear that up for me. And then second, how the landscape of the Big Thicket has changed since the mid to late 1800s.
Well, the double first cousins. I'm not sure exactly how all that turned out, but he said that his dad's brother was married to somebody that was married to her sister. Someone's married to somebody else in the family. For instance, if my son John would have married somebody from the same family you married somebody from, but our kids would be double first cousins. And then these double first cousins go marry double first cousins, and that's what he was talking about. And that it's really as close as brothers and sisters because they come from the same people, but they're not. It's not incest by any
Right,
means.
but there's that connection, almost like an in-laws kind of a connection or some type of other
Yeah,
familial connection, right? I think about the twins and a family marrying twins and another family and how that could all come about that way. And it boggles my mind. So in the back of your book, to clear that up for people, in both books, you have the genealogies. So if people get lost in just kind of following who belongs to who and who begat whom in the books, they can look at the back of the genealogy and see how everyone's related. And there's so many of us in the Hardin County, Big Thicket area who are related. So
yeah.
talk to us about how it's changed. How's the Big Thicket changed?
Well, getting back to the double first cousins, like if
Oh,
you
yes.
had a sister
Okay.
and y'all married brothers,
Mm-hmm.
they would be your kids would be double first cousins. Shirley has
Ah,
that in her family.
she
Her
does.
mama's brother married the sister of another one of her aunts that married the brother of that sister. So their kids are all double first cousins.
Wowzers.
Anyways, getting back to the genealogy,
Mm-hmm. Well, or the genealogy or whatever you want to talk about.
the big ticket has really changed. I'll get to that first. I didn't see it, and it's changed so much from the time I was a boy. I can remember beautiful timber, hardwood mixed in with pine, and a mixture of hardwood and pine trees, longleaf and loblolly. And my daddy said it wasn't nothing then like it was when he was a boy. And I can imagine a story about over at North Prong, which is a mile west of where I live on Black Creek. We used to go in there, and it's a beautiful stream where this the East Prong and the North Prong conjoin together to make up the body of Black Creek that goes all the way to Pine Island Bayou over there east of Pine Ridge area in that area. But if you can imagine when they were here hunting and living off the land, virgin timber, untouched by an axe or a saw, that'd be something to see. But we never got to see it. Nobody took any pictures of it because cameras weren't available in the thicket in those areas. And of course, the timber companies always takes advantage of everything to make a dollar. And they get their dollars. The trees are gone. And they done spent the money too. So you ain't got either one anymore.
It's really, really sad. And the people who actually did experience it, I mean, I'm sure that they were taking pictures in their mind of it. I think of a story that you put into this book called The Holy Ghost Thicket that Archer Fillingham, the newspaper editor in Kuntz News, I believe, right?
Right.
He wrote that about the thicket and what it was like to be out there in what you're describing. And it can't even be compared to anything today. I think we do as people, as humans, we go in and just basically I'm always amazed at how humans will go into this beautiful creation or this beautiful wooded place and they'll chop everything down and they'll build something back, houses or whatever with wood from some chopped down trees. They'll reconstruct this and then there's no trees around it, but then they'll go and buy trees and then go back and plant them, or they'll go and buy plants and flowers and then they'll go and bring those into their house and bring them in into their gardens and things like that. It's just this reverse engineering that's of kind of interesting to me. But at the heart of it, I think we're all part of God's creation, and there's a piece of us that appreciates so much the creation that God has, and people want to be able to create a little something that's like that themselves. You know what I mean?
Right. My dad and his brothers and many people in the community uh, helped the loggers some, but they didn't clear cut. They were what you call spot cut. Get a tree here and a tree there, and not just all of them. In the last 50 years, they just clear cut. I mentioned the coal kiln, I think, in my first book.
Hmm.
You can't find that place anymore. And the North Prong is so cut up and beat up, it looks like a drainage ditch more than a running stream. And I hate that it happened, but it did, and you can't do anything about it.
I think you've had people ask you in the past, it would be great if you could do some type of tour of like the just the things, the landmarks that you talk about in the book, in your first book, and not even in the second book. But what is your response to that if someone says, "Hey, can you show us where these things are? Or could we go on a tour of these places?"
You can't find them. They vanished.
Yeah.
I mentioned about Thomas Jefferson Goldman, T.J. Goldman, the Red Fox, or the Wild Man of the Big Thicket. About stories about him and where he was ambushed and killed. Well, the building stood there for years and years and years, but it's not there anymore. So you can't just say this is where it happened. And on the Sap Graveyard Road, there was two graves out there where M. Sap buried Watson Havard. And Daddy used to take us out there when we was kids and show us where those graves were. But you can't find them anymore either. So it's a shame.
Hmm.
You just can't.
Yeah, it really is. It is a shame, but that's why it's so important that people like you actually write these things down. And you spoke about your Uncle Hardy and the fact that you give him a lot of credit for actually sitting with your grandpa and writing down all the stories. And what I loved about reading the stories from him, stories from my grandpa, your dad, was their voice coming through. Like you can really hear them saying it, how they would have talked, how they would have spoken. And they all tell it different. And when I say different, I don't mean that the stories are different. I mean the way that they talk is different. And that comes across in the way that those stories were written down by the people who dictated those for them, right? Um, yeah, your grandpa was very matter of fact in his I feel like he was just like about the business. I got
Right.
the impression he's about the business and he's like, let me handle that for you. I mean, how tall was he? Like 6'7"? I mean, surely
Six
he was
six.
intimidating to
He
some
was
people.
6'6". You can see that picture of him when he was about 65 years old, standing by my grandma, and he could hold his left arm out like that, and she could stand under it. She was probably about 5 feet tall. Little old woman, mean and not mean, but as tough as nails.
Yeah,
But
that gene, that height gene didn't get passed to your children so much.
not the man. Dub got it.
He did. I'm glad you mentioned Uncle Dub because his name, like he carries the name through his family. It's like Uncle Dub was Daniel Williford, and then he has a son, Daniel. Am I getting the middle names right?
Daniel is a junior. Daniel Williford Jr.
Okay, so he's Daniel Williford Jr., and then he has a son, Jeremy Dan,
Dan.
it's Daniel. Then he has a son, and his name's Warren,
Yeah.
right? So I love how they just kept the namesake going down all the way through. I think it's pretty cool. But
Faye's got a son named Daniel.
oh yeah,
Daniel.
Danny.
Daniel
Mm-hmm.
Childs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a lot of Daniels, Elizabeths, and Gavins in the family. Trying to think of any other of the names from your family that might still be passed down, but those are the ones that come to mind for me. I'm going to ask people that are joining. I know some people are on their phones. It's harder to communicate through the phone, but we do have a chat. If you have any questions you want to drop in there, or if you're here, you have something you want to add to anything that's been mentioned, definitely say it in the chat. We'd love to know that because we're going to share the recording back with a lot of people after this, and they'll be able to read your questions and comments too. Well, Daddy, I am so excited and feel so honored to have been part of this process with you in the journey with you on both of these books. It is like I tell you all the time, it's my greatest, not to quote Chick-fil-A workers, but it seems very appropriate to say, it has been my pleasure to be able to support you in both of these books. Um, just the little part that I've been able to play. And I do want to give a shout out to Bill Anderson. He's one of your good friends. He may be even a cousin. He may be in the genealogy. I don't remember. But
I
he's
don't
the one
think
who
so, but
designed the covers of the books, right?
yeah, both of them.
Yeah, he designed both of these book covers for us. You notice that this one, the new one's in proof form. It's not for resale right now, but it's about to be. So if you're wanting to buy a book, we're going to share a link to pre-order an autographed copy of one.
But
And
the
those are,
book there that we're looking at is not proof form.
no, 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 that cover is not in proof form. Correct.
It's exactly the same cover it will be.
Yep, will look just like that for sure. Yes. Is there anything else you want to add or people to know about the book or what's coming next? Are you going to do any like author signings or anything like that at the libraries?
Yeah, I'll probably do that. I need to because local people can get it signed that way without me having to mail it to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I mailed some 10 years ago, and it took people 4 or 5 weeks to get them.
Oh,
Matter of fact,
goodness.
one person bought another book because hers never did show up. And then after she bought it, it showed up.
Good
So that's
grief.
kind of crazy with the mail system. But
That wasn't strategy on your part to get them to buy two books, right?
oh no.
I gotta buy two now.
I owe Amy Lynn Dorman a book because she bought two.
Yeah.
So because of that other book not getting there.
Right. Amy Lynn Dorman, I graduated high school with her. We went to school from kindergarten all the way to graduation. It's one of my good friends from back in the day.
Yeah,
Uh,
good people. They're all
very
kin
good
to us
people.
too. They're kin to us.
Don't even try to explain it, but they do have an arm of the Browns
Now, from the
on their
Pine
side, right?
Ridge Browns are kin to us.
Hmm.
Did you want to close out with that song?
I will. I will close out with a song, but I want to ask you one more question first. A lot of the stories that we read about, we didn't mention your dad a lot, but the book's divided into three parts. It's really the perspective of your grandpa in part one and all of the stories of the bear hunts. Part two comes in with your dad telling his stories of growing up in the Big Thicket and stories he remembers about his father, Warren. And then part three is you telling some of your stories about growing up in the Big Thicket. And then it kind of leaves with a nice little legacy moment at the end to close it out. It's really, really sweet. I won't spoil that piece of it. But when you think back on the book and all of the tales, they seem like tall tales in a lot of ways when we're talking about your grandpa hunting in the Big Thicket Woods. What do you think is the most unbelievable story about your grandpa that's out there that is actually, in fact, true?
Well, he killed one bear with
A knife.
a knife, and he went into where the dogs had him bait up, and he was kind of circling a tree. So instead of him shooting him, he just took his knife out and killed him. That's the only wound he ever got from a bear is when he retaliated and caught my grandpa in the arm, but it wasn't a real severe wound. And when he went back out to where the other guys were, he said, "I got that bear." And I said, "Well, I didn't hear you shoot." And he said, "I didn't shoot. I killed him with my long knife, probably something like a Bowie knife."
How? I guess when you're 6'6", you have leverage. I mean, I don't know. That's how tall do you think the bear is when it's on its hind leg? I mean, it depends on the bear, I guess, but
Well, they about as tall as teenage boys when they're standing up. The extra big ones are even taller. They killed one that weighed 400 pounds. That's a pretty big bear.
they got
And
a
that,
lot of lard out of that one, I remember.
it was tough.
And
But
the way they carried them out of the woods too. So many things. I can't wait for everybody to read it. I've read it through a few times now. I'm excited to read it through for pleasure and not really looking for things to make better or improve upon. When I say that, I just mean grammar, editing, not even grammar, just editing and structure. But it's so good. I can't wait for everybody to read it. I'm looking at what Aunt Beth said in the comments. She said, "We love the first book and can't wait for this one. My grandson Spencer is 6'4" or taller, so he got great grandpa's genes."
yeah,
Indeed. Indeed, he did. It did not come to daddy's children. I will just keep saying that. But
yeah.
daddy, yours and mom's anniversary is tomorrow. Happy 60th wedding anniversary to you. That's worth celebrating. And what a cool time for you to have this book about to be 100% published and shared with everybody out there. Kristen, thanks for being here, Kristen. Kristen, I mentioned earlier, is my niece. She and I tag teamed helping to get the book edited and formatted. She said she's adding the final edits to the published document as we speak. So it's going to be ready to roll out here in the next couple of weeks. If you want to pre-order the book, you can do that. We'll be sharing links everywhere, but I'll drop it in this chat too. The pre-order form is in this chat. If you want to grab it and go ahead and reserve your autographed copy. And with that said, we're going to close it out, like Daddy said, with his song about his grandpa when he came to Hardin County, Texas. And
Let me say something about Dr. Hooks.
oh, please
You
do.
know, you see a little, I don't know, paragraph or a statement that he made. I met him up at the old hospital annex up there. Used to be the Hardin County Hospital to buy one of
Hmm.
his books. And when I bought it, he wrote that's in there. He wrote it down to encourage me not to worry about my book being perfect. But I had asked him about if he would forward my book, and he said he would. But he died before that could happen. And he told me, he said he wished that more people would write books about the Big Thicket. And it would be nice if they could, 'cause they write it from their perspective.
Hmm.
Okay, that's all.
Well, down the road, it might be cool. We talked about having Uncle Russell and Aunt Beth hop on one of these book talks with us at a later date. But it might be cool to bring some people in, like Diane Adrian Thompson from the Big Thicket National Preserve. You mentioned that in your book as well when that came to being. And she's doing a lot of really great work in Southeast Texas to raise awareness about the Big Thicket and keeping that preserved. Lots of awareness going on about the Big Thicket over in the Golden Triangle in Southeast Texas. So I'm just excited you get to be a part of it and we get to be a part of it through you and your book. I put the QR code too up on the screen if somebody wanted to scan it. They can, and it'll take them straight to that form to pre-order. And if you want to hang back and ask questions or chat a little bit, I'm going to stop the recording in a few minutes, not just yet, but we're going to close it out with Daddy's song unless you have something else to say, Daddy.
That's it. Appreciate everybody. Appreciate your participation and your feedback.
Yeah,
God
for
bless
sure.
you.
And share and please share the information about the book on your social medias and stuff. Word out.
When my grandpa came to Texas, he was young and in his prime. He settled in Hardin County on the Big Thicket side. Well, it must have been like paradise, perfect place to be. Live and love on the land that was wild and free. And all he ever needed to survive was a sure shooting rifle and a string of fishing line. 'Cause everything he needed to raise a family came from the land that was wild and free. He didn't have an oil well sitting in his backyard. He didn't own a motorboat or drive a fancy car. No TV or radio to tell him where to be. He lived and borrowed from the land that was wild and free. Well, if he could see what's happening around here now, I'll say he'd shake his head and ask us how we could trade for luxury's price of being free. Live and love on the land that was wild and free. And all he ever needed to survive was a sure shooting rifle and a string of fishing line. 'Cause everything he needed to raise a family came from the land that was wild and free. In the year of 1940, my grandpa passed away. At the honest age of 85, they laid him in his grave. Sometimes in the evening, in the cool of the day, when the whippoorwill sings loud and clear, I can hear Grandpa say, all I ever needed to survive was a sure shooting rifle and a string of fishing line. Faith in the good Lord that He would provide a living in Hardin County on the Big Thicket side. Faith in the good Lord that He would provide a living in Hardin County on the
love that so much, Daddy.
Thank you, Blue.
And you're playing the guitar too. I don't know if people knew that, but that's you playing the guitar and singing.
Yeah, we still online with
We
people.
are. I'm going to stop the recording now. Thanks, everybody.
Love y'all. My sister Beth wrote on there that she's sending, she wants 2 books, and she said, when I endorse it, she said, write something sweet.
I know, I saw. Oh my gosh, he's so funny. That's awesome. Okay, I sure love you, Daddy. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Love
Oh,
you
let me
more.
see. Well, hang on. Let me see whatever. She said, love you. I'm sure you're going to write something extra sweet for her because she is so sweet.
Yeah. Thanks.